coffee and a donut. We've hidden them behind the wall over here. We had some set us up to where hopefully the lighting will work for us today. My name is Anita Gordy, and I'm with OSU Okmulgee. We have a good turnout today from our local people here on campus. It's our break week. We run a 3-semester year, so we were trying to take advantage of it so our local staff and faculty could come today. We feel like telecommunications is an important issue, and we here in Okmulgee County are really excited to be hosting this. Everyone should have had an opportunity to get an agenda. I think there's some agendas at the back, or we can get some in if you missed that. As you can see by the agenda, we have a pretty packed day. So we're going to try to stay on task today and give you some different perspectives on telecommunications. Wanted to just fill you in a little bit how we got started and why we're hosting this. In the brochure that you received, it talked about the Greater Okmulgee Coalition, Telecommunications Coalition. One of our partners that we work quite a bit with is Southwestern Bell, and we're very happy that they're co-sponsoring this today. They're making it possible for us to bring in Jay Sanders from Georgia. And I don't know if any of you have ever heard Jay Sanders talk, but we feel like his presentation on telemedicine is probably one of the best you'll see. So we're really excited about that. We're glad to have Southwestern Bell helping us out there. Southwestern Bell sponsors, I guess this is the second year, they sponsor a $50,000 grant to communities that are wanting to set up a telecommunications infrastructure. Last year it went to Ponca City, and this year it went to Miami. And what they're trying to do is work with communities to start looking and planning for the future. Well, in Okmulgee County, several of us around the county were kind of talking about what was happening with telecommunications and seeing if we could spell it, and talking about distance learning. But as we started looking at whether or not we wanted to apply for that grant, we decided we really weren't up to speed on it. And so we brought a group of community people together and started talking about what we wanted to do and how to go about a planning process. And what they were telling us was that we needed to have something to kind of create a knowledge base to work from, because so many of us felt like we really didn't have enough knowledge to be determining a sense of direction. About that same time, the Okmulgee Chamber brought in the PACE group. They're an economic development firm that helps with consulting in direction of economic development for different communities. They're from Tupelo, Mississippi, and so many of you are very familiar with the recommendations that they made. And we weren't working with them at all, but it just kind of coincided that one of the recommendations they made was that Okmulgee County could really benefit from looking at where we stand on telecommunications. When industrial prospects come to town, when companies are looking at whether or not to expand, they're looking at what the education is like, what the land base is like, what the utilities are like, but they're also coming in and they're saying, you know, where do you all stand on telecommunications? Are we going to have connectivity? Are the school systems, are they having connectivity? So we felt like, you know, the timing is right, and we feel like it's pretty critical. Now, obviously, telecommunications is not something that you go into and you just throw a few bucks at. It's a very lengthy process, and you have to really look at where the funding is going to come from and whether or not the players in the community are working together. So that's what we're trying to do here today. And as I said, the agenda is very packed. We're trying to look at several different aspects of telecommunications and distance learning. And obviously, each speaker is very limited in their time. But what we're hoping, we'll end the day around 3:30. And we do have several providers here today. And I'm sure they'll stick around and visit with you if you all have some questions. We'll have some breaks that you can mingle and talk. And over lunch, we have about an hour and a half. Jay Sanders will be our luncheon speaker. Let me just give you a little, some housekeeping details. Many of you have already found the coffee and the donuts, so that's taken care of. The restrooms are at the information booth where you all checked in. They're down the hallway, straight that way. We will be having lunch in the stateroom. It's right down the sidewalk to the left, and it's the first building on the left, so if you follow the crowd, you probably won't get lost. I'd like to thank our food service staff, Dean Daniels and Nancy Munns, and the staff and our culinary arts students. Some of you that haven't been on our campus are not familiar with our culinary arts program, so they always do a wonderful job on our food service, and I'm sure you'll agree. Let's see, I think that's about it. I might recognize a couple people. Kent Roberson and Jerry Zink have worked very hard on this program. Many of the presenters have worked with them on the audio-visual and just getting this set up. Kent was one of the brains behind figuring out who we needed on the agenda and how to go about getting them and all. So there's no way that we could have done this in Okmulgee County without their help. There have been several others on campus and around the community that have helped also, but I think you'll agree that we've got a pretty good agenda for $25. So anyway, at this time I'm going to introduce our provost. Dr. Jones is our provost here on campus, and a lot of his vision is the direction that we're taking here on campus as we look at growth and expansion, as we look at our role in economic development in the community. And he's just going to welcome you and give you a few words and some of his views on economic development and where we're going in the county.
Thank you, Anita. I do want to welcome you to OSU Okmulgee today, and for those of you that are off campus, and also say special thanks to our campus faculty and staff that are participating in this meeting. I'll keep my remarks brief. I was reminded of the story about the monk who went on the retreat. He was supposed to be on it for 3 years, and they were allowed to say 2 words a year. The first year he said "bed hard." That was the 2 words that he said to his supervisor or the senior. The second year he said "food bad." The third year he said "I quit." The supervisor said, "Good, you always have been a troublemaker." So, the technology is changing very, very rapidly, and it's just almost difficult sometimes for us to keep up or think that we can keep up, but we can. We just have to make a commitment to it and do the kinds of things that need to be done and upgrade ourselves in terms of our knowledge and skills as we approach the changes in technology. Because since 1980, technology has changed rapidly. In 90, it changed rapidly, and now there's almost as much happening, it seems to me, in changes in technology in 1 year as used to happen in a decade. And so that kind of change is just something that we live with all of the time. I do want to just cite a couple things from John Naisbitt, that he has written a number of books, and the most recent one is Global Paradox. And some of you have probably had the opportunity to read that book, but if you haven't, and you want to do some reading that talks about the future, and particularly the impact that technology is going to have on the future, I would highly recommend that book. But he says telecommunications is the driving force that is simultaneously creating the huge global economy and making its parts smaller and more powerful. And he says telecommunications will provide the infrastructure every industry and every company will need to compete in a truly cosmopolitan marketplace. The telecommunications industry will double and redouble as we drive toward global interconnectivity. And Anita said this morning about telecommunications in Okmulgee County. We have, it's telecommunications around the world and instantaneously. It doesn't make any difference if we're in Okmulgee, Oklahoma, or if we're in Tokyo, Japan, or Ontario, Canada. At least as I understand what I think is happening with the global economy, the global marketplace, and the way that we're going to live and work. It's instantaneous and it's around the world. So it's the economic development, if Okmulgee County or Oklahoma or the United States is going to compete in economic development and create more jobs, then telecommunications has to be, it just seems to me, and all of the things that are related to that type of technology has to be the linchpin to making that happen. And we can't do it independently, and we can't do it individually. We must work together. And the other thing that Naismith says is that we have to move from a philosophy of that there are lots of different technologies and that there is a single technology, that there's a blending of all technologies and it's coming together as one. And I'm convinced, and there are a whole lot more speakers here that are 1,000 times more capable than I am, that we're going to carry all of that technology in something that looks like a credit card or some other device that's no bigger than our Visa or MasterCard credit card, and that's going to carry video, and that's going to carry data and voice and everything else, and it'll be wireless, and we'll just, wherever we are, somebody will be able to communicate with us. And then we'll go to a serial box, our post-hostage box, and we'll get the device out of that, and we'll plug that little piece of intelligence in, and then we'll communicate with somebody around the world whenever we want, wherever we want. The device is not the significant part, at least as I see it. It's that intelligence, little piece of chip that will collect all of that information, and so you can live and work wherever you want, and almost under whatever conditions that you want. I want to just read you one statement here about something that's already happened. It says, the ideal handheld device would combine elements of all the devices. It would be wireless video phone with a fast notebook computer that recognizes human scribbles. Or take it one step further, a device that can do all of the above and translate word from one language into another. And then in January of 1993, already has happened, a researcher with Japan's Advanced Telecommunications Research Institute International in Tokyo sat down at a bank of computers and spoke. The keyboard is almost obsolete today. Spoke into a microphone saying, "Moshi, Moshi," if I'm saying that right. 12 seconds later, a computer in Pittsburgh conveyed the researcher's message in English. Hello. That's what is happening today on an experimental basis. That's what will be taking place tomorrow, and it will be business as usual. We just have to get ready to do business as usual with technology in a different way than we've ever thought about it before. Thanks for coming today. This will be a lot of information presentation. We want to raise the awareness level, heighten the awareness in the interest of everyone that has an interest in doing more with technology, and be that catalyst, and be that organizer and that synthesizer of bringing people together and moving us further and further ahead. Thank you very much.
Our first presenter today is also going to be our MC for today, Larry Pankratz. Larry and I go back probably 5 or 6 years. When I first started working at OSU Okmulgee, Larry was one of the first people I met at a conference that I really felt like was a peer, kind of in a similar position, but very much farther along in what they were doing at their institution. At the time, Larry was working at Kansas State University at a branch campus in Salina. And Larry had such a way of setting up programs with industry and working economic development, being community-oriented and trying to really move things ahead in the community. And I just felt like he had a lot of information he had to share, and I was constantly calling him and looking up to him for guidance. Shortly after that, one of the things that they got really strongly into was this whole area of telecommunications and distance learning. So when Larry used to talk Star Wars to me, I had no idea. It was just completely over my head. And I would call him and I'd say, oh, that's just so far away from our campus, So whenever we started trying to do this conference together, the first thing I did was I got hold of Larry. Larry's no longer at K-State. He's moved on and he is working for a telecommunications company, so that was even better. Now he has another perspective as well, the other side of things. So Larry kind of advised us on our program and has given us advice in terms of how to get started and some direction to go and all, and hopefully will continue to be available for free advice. So anyway, he's going to be with us throughout the day, and he will be introducing the other speakers and trying to tie together and share some ideas with us and kind of start us off with an overview. Currently, Larry is the Director of Network Marketing at KenNet Fiber Optics, and that's in Salina, Kansas. He's been there for a little over a year. Previous to that, he had 11 years at Kansas State University, where he did a variety of things. He did their continuing education, their credit and their non-credit, for the colleges of business, engineering, engineering technology, and aviation. He spent 2 years as director of the Technology Assistance Center at Kansas State University. He's also served on the Kansas Board of Regents Distance Learning Council, and 4 years on the Dean and Directors of Continuing Education Council. But one of the things that Larry and I used to talk a lot about was what they were trying to do with their infrastructure statewide in Kansas. And that was something, many of you are aware of the Oklahoma Distance Learning Association now. I know that a lot of us in the state felt like the state was just kind of floundering around with no sense of direction and connectivity. There were a lot of things that different institutions were trying to do, business and industry was trying to do, different providers. And the Oklahoma Distance Learning Association is about a year old, and I think it's finally beginning to do some of the things that Kansas was talking about doing back then. So I think that was real interesting that Larry was in on that ground floor back then, kind of what Oklahoma is going through now. He also chaired the Leadership Salina program for 4 years, and he serves on the board of directors for the Hospice of Salina. So you can see he's very multidimensional, and you'll probably see more of that in his presentation.
It's always nice to have a friend go ahead and introduce you, because they make you sound so good because they want you to come back for nothing. School's about ready to start again, and having been in higher education, what you always did is start out with the topic of where you should be. If this isn't where you should be, you can leave now. If not, we'll just keep moving right along. What I'll be talking today a little bit about is, we've already gone over a review of today's schedule. I'm going to talk a little bit about an overview of KinNet, telecommunications present and in the future, and then I have an 8-minute video on Flowers by Alice. You also do have some handouts, and the neat thing about technology is those handouts are already obsolete because I've changed some of them. So if you're going through them and wondering how come it doesn't stay the same, is this morning I was still continuing to update my files. Just to give you a little background, what KinNet is we're a wholly owned subsidiary of Kansas Cellular, which is a statewide cellular company in Kansas. We're owned by 25 telephone companies in the state of Kansas. To give you a little background, in the state of Kansas we have 45 telephone companies. Most people usually think, okay, there's 1 or 2. In Oklahoma you have 39 telephone companies. We have over 890 miles of fiber optic lines that go throughout the state of Kansas. We start up in Kansas City, Missouri, in a building that they call them techno buildings, that were interconnected with Wiltel, LDDS, MCI, a lot of different companies in this building, and we send our information to them and hand it off, and then they send it nationwide. Then we go out in the southwest part of the state, and we go out around Liberal, Kansas, and we connect to other companies to send our information to the West Coast. We provide voice, video, and data over our fiber optic lines. And just an example of who our customers are is, of course, the telephone companies. For people who are in the telecommunications industry, there's a thing called equal access. I said that's the ability or the right to receive telemarketers calling you at night to ask you to switch to a different long-distance provider. What we do is we aggregate the telephone companies long distance, and then we send it or hand it off to the various different long-distance providers. We also work with inter-exchange carriers. When you say an inter-exchange carrier, that's an IXC, which means AT&T, MCI, LDDS, or WorldCom. I'll explain a little bit more about some of the confusion. Also, we have some gentlemen from the Wiltel companies or Williams companies that will also help explain it. Other companies we work with are business and industry. We are involved with what we call the private line and carrier services area. Kara Walker is with me today. We were up talking to WorldCom yesterday, And if you happen to have some questions about private lines and circuits, she has a very deep ability. She's in the back there, and she said, don't introduce me, but she's the second to the last by the back door. What that means when we work with business and industry is, for instance, maybe there's 5 banks that need to be connected, and they'd like to be connected on a regular, continuous basis as they can. Well, it gets a little expensive to have your long distance, or to do it on your long distance line. So what we do is we lease circuits, like you rent a house or you rent a car. We actually lease a circuit for a month or whatever, and they have access to it 24 hours a day. They pay a one-time fee, and then they can put whatever they want over. Telecommunications, present and in the future. About a year ago, I got into telecommunications, what I call full-time. Prior to that, I felt like it was part-time, and I was really lost. I mean, I think this comic character up here kind of tells the way I felt is which way do we go? Well, I'm big into analogies, and it's kind of like learning to juggle blindfolded. First you have to have the tools to juggle. You have to have the clubs. You also have to have a blindfold that covers your eyes. You have to have the ability to throw things in the air. And catch them. The one thing people up front here are laughing about is what we're here to do today in telecommunications is open your eyes to telecommunications. Don't go into telecommunications blindfolded. Always make sure you have a hole in your blindfold. Then it says, what did I say? What did they just say? Does anybody know what a TLA or FLA is? Okay, those are 3-letter acronyms and 4-letter acronyms. It's pretty tough. What you find out in telecommunications is there's an acronym for acronyms. There's actually a whole book on acronyms for telecommunications. And the biggest thing I found out, and the best thing that I can say to you as you step into telecommunications, is ask a whole lot of questions. There's a lot of people who think they're experts that don't really know as much as you think they do. They just use a lot of acronyms to kind of snow you on it. So just remember that. And am I lost? No, we're not lost. It's a phenomenal amount of data and information that we're receiving. Just keep at it, and eventually you'll get those tools to move along. I think the Kiplinger newsletter kind of summed it up on their July 7th, 1995. Big changes in phone, cable TV, computers, and faxes. The telecommunications bill will unleash competition and spur all sorts of new technology. I know a lot of you have been hearing about the telecommunications bill, and you go, what is it? What does it mean? A lot of us in telecommunications aren't really sure how it's all going to shake out. We have federal bills that are coming down that are telling us this is the way it's going to happen, and competition is going to happen. In the state of Kansas, they've decided to jump on the bandwagon and really get going with it. We have the Kansas Corporation Commission that takes care of all the regulatory things with telecommunications. We have 6 different committees meeting to determine what they're going to do with telecommunications. Then our legislature on top of that has decided to get into the act. So I think I spend about half my time up in Topeka just at the state level, let alone trying to stay up at the federal level. From your standpoint, I would say watch it, keep an eye on it. A lot of newspapers do good summaries on it, but to really get very deeply involved, that's probably the privilege we have, and actually as providers, that we're very much involved with that. It will help to get cheaper and better service. I really hope this is going to be true. Other things that the Kiplinger newsletter said, satellites there'll be continually more and more of them. Pocket phones by the end of the year. Well, so far, I got a pocket phone right now. It does help to work for a cellular company, but that's already coming true, and that's what's happening. Smart TV will sort hundreds of channels. We're wondering how we can handle all these channels. Well, they're saying they'll have a telecomputer, that you can go ahead and say, this is the stuff I like, and it will sort through it and tell you what's on at what time. I like the last statement here because I really think it's true. It says, lots of problems to work out. And that's the way it is, as I see it across the board of telecommunications, is there's a lot of problems to work out. Talk about the present and the future of telecommunications. Let's take a step back, way back to the 80s. In the 1980s, we could transmit data at 50 megabits per second, which is equivalent to sending about 8 paperback books. It's a stack about a little over a foot. Other things that happened in the 1980s, computers advanced from the 8K to 286K megabyte computers. I remember in my first class in 1980, I got on this computer class. I was taking a TRS-80. You know, I thought this was big stuff. It had a cassette deck as my what I call a floppy disk nowadays. And it moved all the way to 286 megabytes. Software started coming about. Instead of you having to program. I mean, the first half of the 80s, I had to program things. Actually, in the 70s, I had the privilege of being on computers that had card readers, and I was walking across campus one day and tripped, and there went my whole program. You know, it is nice you can carry everything on nice little floppy disks now. Telephones began to converting to digital versus analog. And the reason I put in the majority of exchanges, even in Kansas and most states, there still are companies that still have people on party lines, and they might not have got totally to digital. Other things that happened in the 80s is radio communications advanced, and also faxes were born. You know, I remember talking to a lot of people in the 80s, and they're going, hey, this fax will never work. And nowadays, if you do not have a fax, it's kind of like we hope you'll feel with not having a cellular phone. The 1990s came about. Now we can transmit 2,000 megabits per second, which is equivalent to about 320 paperback books. Now again, this is a nice thing about technology. I had it wrong in the handout. It says 350. I got a little glorified there. So, you know, it's really moved along. Computers process in nanoseconds. And I'm sure it goes even faster than that, but sometimes I can't spell all those words as they keep advancing. Now, cable TV and satellites provide hundreds of channels of programming, and cellular phones have become a necessity. Kansas Cellular, which is our owner company, its 10-year plan was to hit 50,000 customers in 10 years. It started in '89. We have a company that started with 2 people. We have 160 right now. We have hit 65,000 customers in a little over 5 years. So you can just see the growth of one industry. Other things that have happened in the 1990s, and the reason I'm bringing all these things up is this all relates to telecommunications. It isn't just telephony or telephones, it all comes together. Networks, on computer networks, we have LANs, local area networks. You know, your computer labs, your businesses are all networked together. You have hosts, you can use a lot of different things with that. WANs, wide area networks. The biggest scare I had going in telecommunications is what I was doing. Well, I finally related back to my computer experience, and really what I'm doing is a wide area network. It's numbers in and numbers out. When we identify telephone calls, sometimes we'll have 30 different numbers that are all put together on a call detail record that identifies that call and what it's doing and where it goes. A lot of people don't realize that if you make maybe a call from Okmulgee and you're going to Los Angeles, it might go to Atlanta first because it is going at the speed of light. What else has happened in telecommunications and computing? Well, everybody's heard of internet come about, and it's a cloud, and I believe it's a cloud. We're an internet provider in Kansas. It's the toughest thing I've ever had to put a business plan together for. It is going to be a big player as we come about. I think it's a little overhyped right now, but I do think as we come down the pipe, it is really going to be an important aspect in telecommunications. Along with that, we have email and desktop publishing. What's great for someone like me who likes to present is, you know, I can put these type of slides together in less than 2 or 3 minutes and off of desktop publishing, and you can really do a lot. I was talking to one of the people from the Williams company, and we were just saying how great it is. We just will never go back to just straight overheads. Fiber optics replacing cable or copper. Has anybody ever seen how big fiber is? This is actually 6 strands of fiber right in front of me. What I always say if you want a demonstration is pull out 2 pieces of hair, As you can see, I've been losing quite a bit in this demonstration. But pull out 2 pieces of hair and hold them up, and what that does is that's your fiber transport. We have an OC48, which means we call it a big pipe. We have the OC48 network that can transmit data over this network. That gives us the ability to send on 2 strands of fiber over 30,000 calls. And I could break it down more and more. You'll hear about DSOs. That's considered a one telephone or one voice channel. Kara's going to sit back there and look at me and go, is he really telling me this right? Or a T1 or DS1, that's 24 voice channels. Or then what we call the big pipe is a DS3, which is 672 voice channels. So you can keep multiplying all this, and if you want to get more information about it, I'll get it back with you in a little bit. Or you can ask me at break or Kara, and we can update you. Again, I'd suggest getting a book on telephony, and that will really help explain a lot of these things. Other things that happened in the 90s, or is happening in the 90s, remember, we've only passed halfway through the 90s by 1 month. We're at 5 years and 1 month in the 90s, and most of this has happened since the 90s. Paging has become a very big area. CD-ROMs, video, data, and audio. I can go home with my kids. We have our whole, I would not want to be an encyclopedia salesman right now unless you're selling it on CD-ROM, because, I can do it on a CD-ROM. The one thing I know I am behind on CD-ROMs is my daughter wanted a jam box that has a CD-ROM in it, and I liked the sound so much that I bought 4 CD-ROMs, and now I have to ask her to use it because I don't own one yet. I'm hoping I can step into that technology eventually. Interactive video. I've been very involved with this in our state. In Kansas, we have 14 what we call clusters or networks throughout the state of Kansas. Those are networks that cluster high schools together right now, and they have 5 to 7 schools in each one. What's nice, and especially in western Kansas where we're losing population, is those 5 to 7 schools. At one school they can have an upper level math teacher, at another one they can have a Spanish teacher or a language teacher, a specialty type teacher that they don't have to all hire in one school, then they can broadcast it to the 5 or 7 other schools. Also, all the border region schools in the state of Kansas do have interactive video. Unfortunately, it's 2 different types of interactive video, so we have to use different types of equipment. It's not cheap. I plan on going into it and spending some money, but it is something that's coming about. I think really where we're going to see a big move forward in interactive video is as they put cameras on top of the computer screens, and you actually kind of like in the movie Disclosure. That was a good example. That's really why I went to see the movie, is to see the voicemail. Another thing that's coming along is virtual reality. There's a lot of it that's out there. Some of it's good, some of it's not. If you have any students that are going into the social services, I'm predicting that this will be our next ism as in alcoholism. It's going to be virtual reality-ism, that people will go off in another world and not come back. And it's kind of like video game-ism. Other things that have come about is bar scanners, or barcoding and scanners. I was talking to our next speaker, Zeke Osborne, about this in the postal industry. You're going to cover that at all? Good. He has some really neat stuff they're doing with the U.S. Postal Service on that. What I'm trying to get to is it's all under convergence. Everything is coming together in different areas. We have telephony, computers, television, fiber optics. Then you start hearing about the different companies that are involved with using it. I think Oklahoma, I don't know if you all know it, but you have one heck of a resource up north here. You have a big player. They're being, Wiltel being bought out by LDDS made LDDS WorldCom, and originally it said LDDS was the fourth largest provider of long distance service in the nation. Well, as they did this merger, they might have moved into 3. It should be very interesting. Kara and myself were up there yesterday, and we were talking to one department that had 30 employees. They now employ 110. And this is in about a 4-month time frame. If you have not seen their facilities, they're pretty phenomenal. I'm not going to get into them because I'm sure the people from Williams Company will get into that. There's a lot of other things coming about as players, utility companies. A lot of people who provide that end user or to the house facilities will be getting into telecommunications. I have TCI and Viacom on there. We call them CAPs, or Certified Access Providers. In larger communities, probably like Oklahoma City and Tulsa, there might already be CAPs, I don't know. In Kansas, we have one, for instance, in Wichita called Multimedia Hyperion, which is competing with the local provider. Telephone companies, yes, they tend to have somewhat of a monopoly on providing service to people. The CAPs will come in there, they'll probably mainly focus on businesses, but there'll be another alternative provider to provide telecommunications to people, and they'll interconnect with a lot of different people. I also put television. Westinghouse was looking, I'm not sure where that merger is, on buying NBC. Television is going to be a big player as we move into telecommunications. I was at a Supercom conference on telecommunications, and we had one of the vice presidents of Disney talk to us and said, yes, even Mickey Mouse is going to get into the telecommunications business. There's a lot of money there. They're doing a lot of different things with it, and it's really going to be a pretty exciting time. At this time, I'd like to go ahead and start the video. It's called Flowers by Alice, and after that I'll finish up with a couple more things.
This is your 7:25 Friday traffic report. The Skyway is backed up, but the bullet train is moving right on schedule. Well, that bullet train. Later today, the Vice President will be arriving at the Press Engineering Association of the Gas Communicators. Expect traffic delays just
show alarm. Notification. Today is your anniversary. Yes, I know. I'd like to send some flowers. From your regular florist? Yes. Connecting.
You guys are going to be late. See you after school.
Don't forget, I practice till 6.
And you'll be home by 6:15, right?
Yes.
You working late tonight, so I will fix dinner.
That'd be great. It's your turn anyway.
Yeah, it's my turn.
Love you.
Love you too, sweetie. See you later.
Give me the morning summers, please.
Since yesterday's closing, you received 6 calls. Of these, 4 resulted in new orders.
Any other activities?
Checking.
This one's perfect.
Would you like to include a voice greeting?
Yes.
Recording.
Amanda, darling. No. Sweetheart. It's been 27 wonderful years. Dear Amanda, where has the time gone? No, that's not it.
Still recording. Security systems remained undisturbed through the night. Cooler number 2 is 3 degrees above normal and is not responding to compensation procedures. Recommends immediate repair.
Okay, I wasn't real happy with the people we used last time. How about finding the 3 lowest bids and get back to me?
Okay.
Here, boy. All right, how about the inventory?
The weekly review of inventory and yesterday's financial summaries are completed.
That's fine.
Request in process. Permission to access store.
Show the front entrance, please. Good morning, Cindy.
Hi, Alice.
Thanks for opening up today.
No problem.
I'll let you in. Sid, open the door. See you in a few minutes.
Thanks.
Okay, we'll go back outside. Good boy.
correct. Inventory has been ordered and deliveries are scheduled. Other calls included 2 requests for business hours and address, and 1 wrong number.
Okay. Good morning.
Hey there.
How you doing?
Good, how are you doing? Alice, Sid just came through with a question about the cooler repair.
Okay, good, thanks. So Smithson's Cooling had the lowest bid and can be here by 11? Let's go with them.
Okay.
Cindy, have you gone through the new orders yet?
Pretty much. There's one there I think you're going to want to take a look at, though. It's number 4.
See, display orders. Expand number 4. So it's the Lockridge's anniversary too. How about that? Don't let this one go out without me seeing it.
I like that. We start the ad with the same animated series. And then we come up with the graphics.
Mr. Lockridge, why don't we highlight the words above the offer in a different color?
Oh, good. Now, if I can just hear the audio again from the
Here
beginning.
you go.
Hi, my name is Frank Lockridge, and for this entire month, I'm offering free consultation on the energy efficiency of your home. Sounds good. Can I have this running by Monday?
That's no problem. Anything else?
That should do it. Thank you.
Powering down.
Is that the Lockridge's arrangement?
Yeah, it is.
Answer. Flowers by Alice, may I help you?
Hi, Alice.
It's the bride-to-be and Mom. How you holding up?
Okay, half crazy, but okay.
She's great.
We have just one little problem. As you can see, we're here at the church. And we're a little worried about the sign right here. I think maybe the flowers are going to block it, especially that big arrangement that we picked.
Okay, let's take a look at it. Okay, we can make it just a little thinner here. And we can take these out and these out. How's that? What do you think?
Perfect. Problem solved.
Great. See you this afternoon.
We can't wait. Thanks, Alice. Bye, Alice.
Bye-bye.
Hey, anybody home?
Amanda, I'm speechless. Happy anniversary. With all my love.
Brad, honey, is that you? Oh, it's about time you got home. We have a rehearsal dinner to go to. Yeah. Oh, did I miss you, Megan? How was your flight? Dad, you should see the church. Oh my gosh, it's so beautiful. Alice did a great job. Can you believe it? I'm getting married. We have got to hurry.
There are a lot of weddings around here.
Oh, Frank, my flowers are beautiful.
Well, thanks to Alice. Happy anniversary.
Thank you. Happy anniversary to you, though.
Now, what's this about someone getting married?
Now, Dad, you should see my bouquet.
Well, that's a little look into the future of telecommunications. Several things that are going to be in the immediate future in telecommunications are, you've heard of the PCS, or Personal Communication Services. kind of give you a quick overview of what that means is currently in most areas, 2 cellular companies provide you your cellular service or wireless service. What PCS will do is have more providers in those areas. Again, some communities will have more providers than others. It's supposed to get down to where everybody will have handheld coverage. It will help as we step into even looking at possibly what we saw by Flowers by Alice, actually the wireless video communications. We also see virtual reality really coming down and moving forward, wireless teleconferencing. Basically, whatever you can imagine will come true. And as the provost said, to compete, we need to think internationally. We have become a global society. That's pretty much the end of my presentation. I didn't know if anybody had any questions. We are running just a little bit behind, and my job was to kind of keep us on schedule, no matter how much she pays me. So, yes?
Is it possible to get a copy of that video?
That is a video, let me tell you who can. The video is from the Video Forum. It's called Visions for the 21st Century. It's presented by the National Engineering Consortium. And I think I can get you, I think there's an address on here that I can get you who to write to on it. But it's actually put on by the National, it has all kinds of other things on it, but that was just one of the excerpts from it. Any other questions? We'll go ahead and move to our next presenter. Could we get the lights? Zeke Osborne is with the U.S. Postal Service. He's worked for the U.S. Postal Service for 30 years, since 1981 or 1986. He's been working in the field of distance learning. The Postal Service networks will reach over 40,000 students this year in their home offices nationwide. I had the privilege of eating dinner with Zeke last night, and I was very impressed with what the U.S. Postal Service is doing, and what's exciting is how what I thought always was a government agency is not. It's a self-supported agency, and it's really moving very forward in this. I'd like to introduce Zeke Osborne.
Thank you, Larry. While we're getting the handouts passed out to you, I'd like to tell you a real quick story, true story that happened to me while I was in the Dallas airport last week. I got off the airplane from Oklahoma City, which unfortunately now is a little turboprop commuter plane, and was transferring over to an airplane to go to Washington, D.C. So I had to go past the international terminal, and when I did, there was a young lady walking ahead of me with these 2 large suitcases. So, being the country gentleman that I am from western Oklahoma, I stopped and asked her if I could give her a hand with suitcases. She said, yes, please. I regretted it immediately because my arms got a couple inches longer as soon as I picked up her 2 bags and started following her over to the other terminal. We moved over to the moving walkway, and I set the bags down, and she started talking to her wristwatch. And I said, excuse me, but what is that? She said, it's a new satellite telephone. I just came back on an international flight from Japan. I have the first one in the United States. And I'm here to show it off. And I said, may I see it? So she showed it to me. Well, my boss is into technology, and I could see brownie points written all over this. So I said, what do you take for it? She said, as I said, it's the only one in the United States. I'm sorry, but I have to take this back and set up a distributorship for it. I said, let me rephrase that. Will you take $5,000 cash for it? She thought a minute and said, yes, I will. So we had just gotten off the conveyor, and I went over to the money machine, took my Visa card, took a $5,000 loan effectively, and I bought the watch. She started walking off, and I said, excuse me, but you forgot your bags. And she said, no, those come with it. The 75-pound suitcase on the left is the transmitter, and the 75-pound suitcase on the right is the battery pack to run your new phone. I didn't bring it to show you. Okay, Anita's going to help me with some slides, and we will tell you a little bit about the Postal Service and what we do in distance learning. Since this is a telecommunications seminar, while we're getting set up with the slides, I'd like to mention to you a new technology that we're doing. Tulsa, Oklahoma is one of these sites. It's a remote encoder site. And what we're doing is taking a letter that's handwritten. It goes through a machine called an optical character reader, and we pull a video image off the front of that letter. On the back of it, we put some little marks that look like we smeared iodine on the back of your letter. And that marks it in its position as it goes through the sorting machine. We take that video image that we've lifted and send it via telephone lines from anywhere in Oklahoma, western Arkansas, southern Kansas, to Tulsa, Oklahoma, where we have an operator that reads the handwritten address, keys in the current zip code information required to deliver that letter to your home, and then sends that information back on telephone lines to the machine that has parked your letter. Within usually 22 minutes, that letter is back into the mail stream with a sprayed-on barcode ready to go. We are doing the encoding sometimes up to 400 or 500 miles away from the site that the letter is actually being produced. And we're doing this all through telephone lines through a data network. 3 years ago, when the Postal Service told me that they were going to do this technology, I thought, yeah, right. It's working now. This is the only commercial I'll do during the system here. We're the largest civilian employer in number of people in the United States. We have 830,000 employees, and we're the 11th largest company by revenue of all of the companies in the United States. Next slide, please. What we do is deliver mail to the public. 40% of the mail volume of the world is delivered inside the United States. The remaining 60% is delivered in other countries. Okay. Every day, we deliver 500 million pieces of mail, 6 days a week, even to my parents' home in 18 miles north of Mountain View, Oklahoma. We do this without tax dollars. All of the revenue that we receive is on sales across the window. And to hand sort this mail, the way we used to do prior to 1969 cost us an average of labor costs of $87 for every 1,000 mail pieces. By moving to automation, which we've done in the last few years, we're doing this same sortation for $3 per 1,000 people. Now, automation is not putting workers, in our case, out of work because mail routes keep growing every year. The volume of mail is up 5 to 6% every year. So even with the automation and the machinery that we're able to put in, our number of employees continues to grow. Okay, next slide, please. At the Technical Training Center in Norman, Oklahoma, what we do is train people for this automation effort. We have a large population. We're spread geographically across all 50 states. And we were asked to provide a better way to reach the number of students that we're required to train. Next one, please. The figures that I'm going to show you today are 1994 figures because that's the last full year of training that we have. It ended in September of last year. We had 108 courses. We taught 24,500 students out of the Technical Training Center in Norman, Oklahoma. We train on automated equipment, vehicles, facility maintenance, mail flow, and one of our biggest teaching challenges last year was to bring all 40,000 post offices into environmental hazardous communication compliance. Okay. Slide 6 in your handout is showing you that in 1986 we started a new delivery method that we call distance learning. We started with an audio-only network. This is not the Radio Shack speaker phones that you might have used in conference calls in your homes. What we did is put a real good quality convener, an amplified phone circuit out to 110 sites starting in 1986. And we started teaching to our students in their home office. Next slide says that the advantages of doing our training this way, we get to have our instructors lecture from the Technical Training Center or from any field site that's set up to do the training. Our students attend the training at their home office using their own equipment. We have hands-on equipment work just as we do at the Technical Training Center in Norman, and we do that by using an on-the-job trainer out at each site. The on-the-job trainer is an experienced technician that is already doing maintenance and repair on the equipment, so they're well qualified to take our students. One big advantage we have in using this type of a program is that we have only 4 students now for each on-the-job trainer. In our resident courses, sometimes we have 14 students in a class, maybe 1 or 2 pieces of equipment that we're training on. So instead of all of the students getting hands-on activities every time they go through class, 2 or 3 of the students will actually perform the hands-on task. The rest of the students are required to just stand back and watch that task perform. So we're getting better hands-on with our distance learning courses. Okay. A typical training day for us starts off with a learning activity packet. We stole that from the Votech industry. Learning activity packets were designed for self-paced training. We modified it for use in our situation because we had no facilitator or instructor on site. The students is basically taking care of their own training day. Students, if we have demonstrations that require full motion and we're using our audio network, we pre-record video and mail that out to our student site. Okay, next slide. This allows us to manage larger classes, but with a smaller number of students in each site. Typically, we have 12 to 14 students in a resident program. Typically, we have 56 students. That's 4 students at each of 14 sites in our distance learning. So with the same number of instructors that we're using, we are able to do quite a bit more training with the same resources. We have 400 audio sites set up today. By the end of this calendar year, which is 5 months away, that will be up to 600. And we're adding 300 a year. We're budgeted for and have already gone through the procurement process to add 300 a year in our fiscal year 96 and 300 more in 97. One of the things that the field service likes is that we can avoid the travel costs for these students coming into Norman, Oklahoma for the training. And our distance learning is averaging us about $1,000 per student. And that cost is a direct cost savings to the office that's doing the training, not to us at the Technical Training Center. But we get a cost savings of about $1,000 on a typical 9-day course. We get that same savings because if the course is only 4 days long, the airplane ride and per diem rates are about the same since we own our own housing. Okay. One external measure of the success of our distance learning network is we got 2 first-place awards in 1991 from the U.S. Distance Learning Association in San Jose, California. We got the best distance learning program for one of our courses and the most significant advance in audio training. This year, 1995, we've been nominated for the best national network, which covers our satellite, our audio graphics, and our audio training. Okay. We started with an audio network. We put identical equipment in all of those systems. And in 1990, the the demand for training was still growing at a rate that we couldn't keep up using resident training and our audio network. So we put a KU band satellite system in. We currently have 4 uplinks, and we've grown to 390 downlink locations. That continues to grow at the rate of about 40 a year. Our cost savings, on the satellite is slightly lower than it was on the audio because we are buying the KU time, but we're dividing by a larger number of students. So it's offset a little bit by the numbers, but we're still saving about $800 per student on our television courses. Our television courses all have talkback live to the instructor through landlines. That means that they call in on a regular telephone. We connect them through an audio bridge. At any time the student wants to ask a question, all they need to do is push a microphone button and ask away. We've covered that one. Let's go on to the next one. Our instructors that were working on our studio environment on our satellite were a little bit uncomfortable having the camera people in the room with them. So in '93, we added what we call automated classroom, where the instructor comes in, sits behind the desk and controls all of their own video roll-ins, all of their own graphics, all of their own camera control. And since we put this new studio in and have given the instructors the option of delivering and managing their own like they're used to doing in a classroom environment, the usage is up again on our satellite. In 1994, we added audio graphics to our network. Audio graphics is a computer-based system. We're using a 486 PC. I started buying these computers in 1994. I'm continuing on the same contract with the same vendor today. The only difference is the computers are now Pentium-based. Instead of a 420 hard drive, they've got a gigabyte on them. Instead of a 14.4 modem, we're at 28.8. And the cost is 1/2 of what we started paying less than 2 years ago for this same system. What I'm buying today will be obsolete by the time this contract delivery is in effect, I'm sure. Technology is just moving that fast. Audio graphics uses a special modem. It's called a raised carrier modem that allows us to use a single phone line to do voice and data at the same time. The instructor connected through an audio bridge can deliver the lecture and then play John Madden. You know when you're trying to enjoy a football game and John Madden comes on with the exit videos and you wish you'd quit that so you could watch the game? Our instructors have that capability now. We can hassle our students the same way. Okay? What has made distance learning work for us at the U.S. Postal Service? We use knowledgeable instructors, people that have come in from field assignments, are qualified on the equipment, and then we put them through a certificate program to make instructors out of them. Our courses are designed by content, not by the technology that they're going to be delivered on. One of the things that we like to tell our instructional staff is the most important thing on any of the courses that you're putting together is your hard copy and your course content. And we try to make the technology in delivering this course transparent as we possibly can. I'd like to take questions from you now if you have any about the networks that we have. I'm going to cut just the last couple of slides that you have in your handout off because I'm trying to get us back on schedule here. But I do want to give you the opportunity, if you have questions, to ask away. I thank you very much. Larry?
Thank you, Zeke. And another thing that was fun with eating lunch with, or dinner with Zeke last night is he actually climbed an 80-foot tower yesterday to adjust one of his microwave antennas on the way up here. So This guy has a lot of diversity. Oh, you're a little sore today? He said his glide is only 80 foot. He said those 230 foot ones get a little tiring. The next presentation will be a video, and Kent Robertson, who is the director of Teaching and Learning of the Teaching and Learning Center here at OSU Okmulgee, will be giving a presentation. Her position here is she assists in incorporating technology into the classroom. She has been with OSU Okmulgee for about 4 years. We'd like to introduce Kent Robertson.
I'm not Bob Baker, and I'm not Skyway Freight Systems, but I am here to present their story to you. Bob Baker is a close friend of mine, and he's an amazing leader in the transportation.
Can't hear you.
Is that better?
Speak close to it.
Okay. Is that better?
Yeah.
Okay. Bob Baker's a close friend of mine, and he's also quite an amazing leader in the logistics and transportation industry. He's originally from Tulsa, and he's now in California, and I think at the moment he's in the Sierra somewhere, toughing it out at a different conference. But we have the Skyway story here on video. One of the things that we found when we received the video from Skyway is that their technology, their infrastructure for telecommunications is so seamless with their operation that it was a little difficult to pull out exactly what we wanted to bring to show you today. But I think the title that we have, Walking the Talk, really fits Skyways. When I first talked to Bob about this conference, he said that Skyways really had become 60% a telecommunications company and 40% was their freight operations. So you have to kind of watch carefully here, because as the video shows Skyway's operation, and as you see Bob talk about it, he doesn't talk about telecommunications. He's talking about the logistics operation. But the telecommunications infrastructure is behind it all. And Skyways wouldn't be successful, and they wouldn't have the growth that they've had if they had not had this infrastructure. Training and electronic support have always been crucial linchpins in their operation. And the video will give much more detail about that. But if you keep in mind the affordability and accessibility issues, both for quality service to their customers who are nationwide, and also just for their own efficient and effective and fun way of working. Skyway is a very unique company, which I think the video will show. In 1977, at its inception, Skyway, which is an air freight company, began that way. They are competitors, for instance, with Airborne and so forth. When they began in 1977, they time-shared a mini-frame. By the end of that first year, they owned the mini-frame and time-shared the time out to other people. And that's how rapidly their technology has gone on for the last 18 years. Every year, they would begin in something, and by the end of the year, they were the ones producing or selling it to others. They do a little bit of everything in terms of their telecommunications. They have a trucking system as part of their operation. Their trucks have satellite connection. When the LA riots were going on, they had a trucker who was down in the midst of it, who was in communication with their various offices and terminals throughout the country. They've also survived the various earthquakes and disasters in California. The Watsonville headquarters are just about 2 miles away from what was the epicenter of the Loma Prieta quake. And throughout those types of things, communication with airports across the country, with their truckers who are on the roads, with their vendors, their corporate customers, they're constantly linked. They have a SkyNet network which directly connects over 400 corporate customers and
their partners. And this infrastructure and their innovative spirit are what attracted Union Pacific Railroad to Skyway. And in 1993, this led to a merger, and now Skyway is a subsidiary of UP Railroad. This particular video was made at the 1993 Leadership Conference of UP Railroad right after the acquisition was made. So if you keep that in mind, it was made for a little bit different audience.
The marketplace is expanding and changing at a breakneck pace. It wasn't long ago that a company could expect a product's life cycle to last several years, ample time to recoup research and development costs and maintain a profit. But today, competition can be so fierce that companies are forced to provide enhancements to their products or introduce entirely new products every 6 months, just to remain competitive.
Good afternoon. I really do appreciate the opportunity to be here today. But I gotta admit, standing before you is somewhat overwhelming. Here you are, representing tradition, history, and the formidable strength of Union Pacific, the mighty railroad started by Abraham Lincoln. And here I am, representing young, scrappy Skyway Princeton, the company started by Bob and Jim. Set on what it takes to compete, a perspective which is a consequence of size and a historic lack of capital, a perspective that has driven us to be fleet of foot, inventive, and risk-oriented. Now, don't get me wrong, I'm not saying that small companies own the franchise on being fast, innovative risk-takers. One has only to look at Hewlett-Packard's success against rivals IBM and Digital to see the impact on a large scale. But these traits have served Skyway well and are major reasons for our success.
Skyway began in 1977 in LA with a unique idea, utilizing computers to track air freight for customers as well as transport and deliver it. Since its inception, Skyway's success has been measured by its financial growth, partnerships, investment return, and future prospects. In the early 80s, Skyway moved to Santa Cruz, an advantage of telecommunications. LA was a necessary terminal point, as were the other major terminals such as Boston, Denver, and Dallas. The corporate headquarters could be anywhere. In 1987, they survived the Loma Prieta earthquake, and the next year they built their own building in Watsonville. Major partners include companies such as Motorola, Hewlett-Packard, Bell Atlantic, and Apple. Skyway was acquired in 1993 by UP Railroad for $13 million. This was a 350% gain for its investors. And revenue for 95 has been projected at $136 million. As you'll see, at the heart of this company is an electronic support
All tied together and controlled through one unified, state-of-the-art information system. Well, I got that out. That is a mouthful. First, Skyway is truly multimodal. We move freight by planes, trains, trucks, some of which we own. On any given day, we can move a critical same-day part on a Lear jet or an entire warehouse on the staff train. Skyway is an integrator. We expand our services well beyond the traditional point A to point B delivery. We are running warehouses for customers, doing light assembly, and even configuring computers prior to shipment and delivery. For example, we provide all the warehouse labor for Apple and deliver every Apple product anywhere through the U.S. So if anyone out there owns an Apple, Skyway probably handles that product. Skyway is a communications company. Our information network ties suppliers, manufacturers, and consignees, and Skyway's transportation partners together in one electronic communications network. And finally, Skyway is an information provider. Around the clock, customers can track their shipments in real time, online, or on request. Skyway's Skynet system is utilized by nearly 400 customers, ranging from manufacturers to school districts. Skyway is a consultant. Our selling process often includes the examination and refinement of a customer's entire supply chain. We develop a complete distribution strategy, even to the point of recommending site locations. In sum, Skyway is an operating logistics company. We operate many of our own assets, but more importantly, we manage a vast array of partner and vendor assets to meet customer requirements. And these requirements are changing and expanding at a dizzying pace. The high-tech industry, which is where Skyway derives most of its revenues, is a very good example. High-tech products have become more complex, and the product's life cycles have been reduced from years to months. In some cases, companies must introduce enhancements or new products every 6 months just to keep up. Additionally, hard-won technical alliances are falling apart and new ones are being forged. 3 years ago, who would have foreseen the Microsoft and IBM alliance that defined the personal computer revolution end and a partnership between arch rivals Apple formed with the stated purpose of creating a common piece of operating software? Remember when IBM and computing were synonymous? The number of companies competing for the same technology customer today has exploded. These high-tech companies, like others, are looking for every competitive advantage they can find. And they're asking themselves 2 strategic questions, both of which have ramifications for transportation and logistics. First, how can we reduce or avoid costs so that we can allocate more money and resources to our core competencies? One high-tech customer of ours did a detailed analysis of their logistics costs and found that it was equal to the research and development expenses. Now you can bet that logistics has just moved up that CEO's priority list. The second, how can we improve or change our operations to differentiate our company from the competitors and gain market share? A second Skyway customer found that their on-time performance from the point of order taking to the point of product delivery was less than 50%, 70%. Yet their customers rated them better than most. They had a failure rate in excess of 30% and their customers weren't complaining. This company now sees improvement in the supply chain as a major means of market differentiation. If they can solve the supply chain problem, they can outdistance their competitors by over 30%. We see these competitive demands as our key to entry. Solving these types of strategic and process problems through applied logistics is Skyway's business. And staying ahead of the competition involves some very important business commitments. First, we must continue to refine our abilities to gather and distribute information, expanding our network so the vast majority of transactions are handled through data interchange, whether standard EDI or proprietary. This is a productivity issue, not just for Skyway, but for our customers and our vendors. The fast and efficient movement of data can supplement, and in some cases actually replace, the movement of freight. For example, Skyway innovated an in-transit merge process that eliminates repetitious freight movement and warehousing. Product moves directly to the market with reduced handling and less risk of damage. Second, we need to expand our multimodal services. Today's customer doesn't care how the freight moves. It can go by train, plane, or a wagon train led by Ronald Reagan. What the customer does care about is that the goods are delivered on time, on budget, anywhere there is a demand. Therefore, this multimodalism must be global and easy to use. Transportation users, like computer users, are demanding ease of use and simplicity. Whether the shipment is moving from Omaha to Council Bluffs or from Singapore to Cairo, they want to know, what does it cost? When does it get there? Developing partnerships with other carriers from UPS and the UP Railroad will be vital to providing this seamless transportation product. Third, we must maintain the capability and the willingness to shift and expand our role within the customer's value chain. Today, savvy transportation and logistics buyers are seeking solutions within a rapidly changing set of circumstances, and sometimes confused and demanding environments, where our efforts must fit the customer's business strategy, not Skyways, not UP Railroad. And with this changing also, rapidly, at both ends of the spectrum, there is substantial opportunity before the A and after the B of traditional transportation. And in fact, there is a very real threat that companies unwilling or incapable of changing and moving into these new areas will risk the very business they have today. At Skyway, change has always meant opportunity. The deregulation of the airline industry allowed us into new markets, two-day air freight, information services packaged with rates and services. The deregulation of the trucking industry allowed Skyway to become multimodal. Now, the rush to third-party or outsourced solutions has opened up an entirely new opportunity for UPC and its youngest and most recent addition, Skyway. Robert Kennedy once said, "Progress is a nice word, but change is its motivator, and change has its enemies." I'm sure Mr. Kennedy has some political and social issues in mind when he spoke these words, but I feel they have application to our industry and to business in general. At Skyway, we would probably rework the saying a little, that, quote, change, though it has enemies, is the motivator of progress. With remote services, today's customer doesn't.
Anybody have any questions? Thank you very much.
We'll go ahead and take a 15-minute break now. We'll be starting up at exactly 9:44 3/4. We'll be starting soon, so if we can get to our seats, please. We're all
I'll get you there.
started now. For everybody who's getting that last donut and orange juice. Coming from the higher education arena, I've noticed what happens is when you say it's time to get started, then the educators all head for one more coffee, and coffee and donuts. So the next group of people that will be presenting are from the Williams Company. I really say that a lot of people, if you don't realize this, the Williams Company is a real asset, I think, to Oklahoma and to Tulsa, and there's been exciting things happening there. What I also enjoy about introducing the group from the Williams Company is all they said is introduce Jim Cunningham and he'll handle the rest. So I'd like to introduce Jim, and he said he'll introduce everybody else.
going to do this morning is talk very briefly about our company, talk about some of the products that we have to sell in the communications area, and talk also about some of the events that our own business, from our own business standpoint, we have uncovered that is occurring across the nation. I want this to be somewhat informal, so please ask questions whenever you want. The four of us will all speak for a few minutes, and then we will invite questions, and at the end there will be questions. So we'd like this to be an interactive session. First off, let me say that the Williams companies...
Will you speak more into the microphone a little louder?
All right. How's this? This better? Usually speaking too soft is not something that I'm often criticized for. But what the Williams companies is as well as being the company that delivers more natural gas and gasoline than to resellers and homes across the country. Over about the past 10 years, we have built one of the largest telecommunications companies in the world. We started first by building communication facilities along our pipelines so that we can control and monitor the operation of the pipelines. And we grew from that where we actually started building communication systems in the pipelines itself, running fiber optic cable through old abandoned pipes. That grew to be such a useful enterprise that we started selling that as a service, and from that we grew the WillTel business, which grew in 10 years grew to be a $2.5 billion business that we sold in January to LVDS WorldCom. But in the process of doing that, we didn't sell the entire communications business that we have. We still have over 2,500 people in the company, over $400 million of revenue, just to build and support our telecommunications business. And although we've shifted the focus by selling WillTel, which became a builder of fiber optics communication systems for carrying long-distance voice, our business now, although we sold that part of it, is expanding into other areas of telecommunications. And with us today, we have people that are rebuilding our telecommunications space from where it is today in these areas. So I thought I would first introduce those, a little bit about our business, then we'll each get up and speak for a few minutes. Over here to my left is Russ McGuire. Russ was one of the architects of the WillTel network, especially in terms of the services and the products that it developed. He is very instrumental in building WillTel to what it became. Today, he's the chief technologist and the manager of advanced technology for one of the Williams companies we call WillTel Internet Services. And so he's going to be speaking today about the internet and what kind of services it can offer you both in education and in business and personal. Then sitting next to him in the middle is Tom Kinsey. Tom works for our group called VYVX, V-Y-V-X, stands for Very Young and Very Experienced. Actually, I'm not quite sure what it stands for. But this is the division of our business that is in itself, in fact, it's the only one of our businesses that doesn't have Will or William somewhere in the name. He's a systems engineer. He is responsible for supporting and helping to build our fiber optics network that we use for video communication. VYVX carries 80% of the sports that you see on television, all the from the location of the stadium itself into central servers to where we then deliver it to the networks for broadcast. So about 80% of the sports you see, we actually carry over our fiber optics network. We also carry about 50% of the international news is carried over our fiber optic network, including the OJ trial. We're making a great deal of money off of the OJ trial, unfortunately. And he is going to be speaking today about some of the research he has done and the knowledge he has on other states that have built fiber optic infrastructures and what impact that has had on the economy of the states. And then to my right is Walt Banfield, who is our chief engineer in our video teleconferencing business. And this is a very substantial business that we have and we are going to be growing, where we actually set up, manage, and run and have a very unique enterprise of where we're setting up distance learning networks for companies as well as video conferences for companies. I'm Jim Cunningham, and I work in the area of the wireless portion of our business. So we are focusing a great deal on video and the wireless, which I'm going to be talking more about when I talk about deregulation and when I talk about the new technologies of solving the last mile problem that actually will accommodate communications between the terminal points of the fiber networks to the actual businesses and homes itself. So we'll begin first with Russ McGuire.
Can everybody hear me? I'm going to speak through this because I'm going to use the overhead projector. And just to clarify a little bit where I fit into the picture, when Williams sold the WillTel Network Services, they kept a piece that still does business as WillTel. So when you hear the name WillTel these days, that probably means still a Tulsa-based company, still owned by the Williams companies. Our primary business is delivering communication solutions to businesses. We're Northern Telecom's largest reseller of PBXs and key systems, as well as providing data solutions using Cisco Bay networks. And now the new piece that I'm helping to build, which is internet-based solutions. What I want to do in the brief time that I have is give you some idea of what the internet is. I'm sure that just about everybody here has at least heard of the internet, and I apologize to those of you that are experts on it because this is more of an introduction than getting into the guts of it. But the internet has been around since about 1969. It was originally built as a military project as the ARPANET, Advanced Research Projects Administration. It transitioned to the National Science Foundation as the NSFNet, and somewhere around the late 80s, companies started saying, hey, we're using this network that's been built to communicate with the government. It'd be great if we could communicate with each other. And a whole new industry evolved in the commercial internet business. Companies such as PSI, UUNet, Netcom are nationwide providers that emerged in the late 80s, most of them with the help of WillTel's fiber network. What has happened in the last year is that the government has virtually gotten out of the business altogether and left it to the commercial marketplace. So today, there is no NSFNet, there is no ARPANET. Today, everything is the interconnection of commercial networks. To give you an idea of how big the internet is and why it's become so important, it's grown relatively rapidly over the past 15 to 20 years, so that what began as just a few people at a few universities has doubled nearly every year to where now there are 30 million people in about 150 countries all connected. At the current growth rate, it should reach 200 million people by the year 2000. Some of the statistics that are really interesting to especially companies that are on the internet is that the typical internet user is in his mid-30s, has a well above average income, and is college educated. So typically they have money to spend and companies are willing to give them products to spend it on. Some of the trends are growing internationalization. I mentioned 150 countries. What a lot of countries and what a lot of companies are finding is that countries that are difficult or expensive to reach via telephone or slow to reach via traditional communications methods are very inexpensive and easy to reach via the internet. So you can communicate via email with someone in Venezuela where it may take 2 weeks to send a letter, or where it may cost $4 to make a phone call. For a flat monthly fee, you can carry on your communications. I mentioned the commercialization. The greatest thing that seems to be happening from an infrastructure perspective is the greatly increased need for bandwidth. Just as our PCs are increasing in speed and the applications that we use on our desktop are increasing in how they look on the screen, that same thing is carrying over into how much bandwidth is required on the networks. And then finally, improved security is being required because of the commercialization. People go to the internet, they find a product they want to buy. The way they normally buy it is probably with a credit card, but they're too scared to send the credit card across the internet. Technology's been developed, products are available, and companies are beginning to implement encryption technology so that when you send your credit card, anyone who might intercept it along the way can't read it and can't use it to buy things that you don't want them to buy. There are two versions of it, one that can be used in the US, the second which is allowed to be exported. The government controls export on things such as encryption, and unfortunately the export version was recently cracked. It took a Frenchman 2 supercomputers, 20 computer workstations, and 2 weeks to crack a single message. And that's the version, that's the weaker version. So that gives you some idea. If someone were capturing every single message coming across looking for credit card numbers, they probably wouldn't have the time or the computing power to try and break it. Next, I'm going to talk about some of the applications. Most of you are probably familiar with email. Email was the first technology really implemented on the internet that had much value. Email is primarily text-based. It's sending messages to someone. And the second technology that's mentioned here is news groups. And news groups are where instead of knowing a specific person you want to send a message to, you're sending a message to a group of people all interested in the same topic. So for example, there are about 3,000 news groups, or 7,000 news groups, ranging from alt.barney.die, organized by someone who doesn't like purple dinosaurs, to comp.os.unix.aix for people who use IBM's version of the Unix operating system. Even though this is relatively old technology, relatively simple technology, it's still the most widely and frequently used on the internet. Following email, the second thing that people wanted to do was they might send an email to each other and say, hey, I've got this great new program that does something really neat. And someone would say, great, can you give it to me? And the answer was, well, let's see if we can figure out how to do that. So file transfer was the next major effort that was undertaken. And the file transfer protocol is the most common way for me to access a file that's on someone else's computer. On the internet, there's something called anonymous file transfer protocol, which means that if I have a program that I want anyone in the world to be able to use, I can stick it on my computer in a special area that I say people can log into anonymously and take that file. It's not so much for the privacy that that's done as much as not wanting to set up lots of different user IDs or passing out a lot of different passwords to people you don't know. Both these technologies, or the second technology I want to talk about is Gopher, which is a hierarchical organization of information that's available on the internet, which was really a major leap forward from just the random files that were out there with FTP. But both of these technologies are kind of losing favor because they've been replaced by a new technology called the World Wide Web. What the web has done, the first thing it did was it create really a non-hierarchical way to link together related documents. And it was developed by physicists in Switzerland who were exchanging documents, research documents primarily, with their cohorts around the world. And what they had was they would have one, say, research paper, and they'd have in the middle of that research paper a reference to a different research paper. Typically, as you all know, when you're writing a research paper, an academic type of paper, you note the references, and then someone has to go off and find that other document if they want more information. The web allowed a link directly from that reference to the other document, whether it existed there on the same computer or whether it existed on a computer on the other side of the world. And this was really neat, and especially for people in research and academia, it was a wonderful tool. And then some programmers at the National Center for Supercomputer Applications took it another step forward and added in multimedia, added in graphics, added in video, added in sound support, and made it all very easy to use, just like a normal Windows or Macintosh application where you just point and click and here's a full multimedia application. Because that happened about 3 years ago, now the World Wide Web has just taken off and has provided tools for people like businesses that they never had before in this potential market of 30 million people. It's become the fastest growing segment of the internet, And it also supports all of the pre-existing technologies such as file transfer protocol, Gopher, email, news groups, so that with this one tool, a user now has access to virtually everything that was already on the internet. The reason that corporations have gotten excited about it is now they can build a web page on the internet that's as exciting to look at as an ad in a magazine, a full color ad, up to 256 colors. Additionally, there can be links in there to greater levels of detail of information than you could possibly put in a single page ad, as well as including video and audio to make it more like television or radio. And finally, it's a lot cheaper than any of those existing media. I also want to talk a bit about how you access the internet. As I mentioned, in the late 80s, a whole industry sprung up, which was commercial internet access. And there are companies called internet service providers or internet access providers. And they provide people, either individuals at home or corporations or universities, access to the internet. And this can range from a dial-up connection at fairly low speeds up through ISDN and to high-speed connections of T1 at 1.5 megabits per second or T3 at 45 megabits per second. These companies are commercial organizations out to make money, and they're going what they provide is the connection between you and the rest of the internet for a price. And to give you an idea, dial-up connections typically cost somewhere in the $10 to $50 range, depending on whether you have unlimited access or only for a certain amount of time per month. Going up to a T1 access costs anywhere from $1,000 to $3,000 a month for 1.5 megabit per second service. I also wanted to give just a few examples of ways that some organizations are using the internet. My company has developed web pages for organizations. This is a Tulsa-based organization called Promise Keepers. They are using this website to communicate with people that want to participate in their activities with a schedule of events. That's an example of a nonprofit. We also took the Williams Company's annual report and placed it on the internet using the World Wide Web. So here we see a highly graphical interface for the Williams Companies to communicate with investors and potential investors. That's the front cover of the annual report on the right-hand side. On the left-hand side is an example of how navigational tools can be built into the internet. This duplicates an elevator panel type of interface for moving around the information that Williams has available. And at the bottom are examples of some of the graphs that appear in the annual report and also appear online. So as you can see, there's a great amount of control over the visual delivery of information that's a far cry from the email of the earliest days. Another example that may be interesting to you is Pinwell Publishing is another company that we've put on the internet. They put information about all of their publications, Oil and Gas Journal, Dental Economics. They have publications in a number of industries. They also run conferences and trade shows, and they have begun using the internet to advertise not only their publications and trade shows, but also to take registration for conferences. This is an example of a call for papers for a power generation conference that they're running in Anaheim. So they are using this not only to communicate information, but also to interact with potential participants at this trade show that they're putting on. So those are just a few of the examples of what some organizations are doing with the internet today, and specifically the World Wide Web is the latest form of technology on the internet. Are there any quick questions before I pass on? Yeah.
Transmit video, download video.
The question is, can you transmit video over the internet? There are two ways that video is done over the internet today, and one is using a format such as MPEG, in which case a video file is completely downloaded to the computer and then a local application plays it from your computer. And that's fairly high quality, although it may take, depending on the speed of your connection, several minutes or even as much as an hour to download a file. The second way it's being done is in real time, where you either have real-time playing of video from a stored source or actual video conferencing. And at dial-up speeds, that's painfully poor quality. At higher speeds, it can be relatively acceptable, although certainly nothing like what you see on TV. Any other quick questions? Okay. Next will be Walt Banfield.
I'm Walt Banfield, and I'm in charge of video conferencing for the Williams Company. So I'm going to speak to you briefly about video conferencing, what it is, the benefits of video conferencing, and a few of the applications for video conferencing. I guess in the broadest definition, video conferencing is defined really as any meeting during which people at different sites communicate through video technology. Such a meeting can take a variety of different forms and employ different technologies. First of all would be a two-way point-to-point connection, which normally is done through the landlines such as telephone lines or a fiber optic network such as Vivix. This is just two sides point-to-point. You see each other on the screen. You have a camera at each end. You have a video monitor at each end, echo canceller, and you can see each other. You get your sight eye-to-eye contact, body language, etc. Another way is multi-point, where you have an originating broadcast site that goes out over satellite. This is good for going to many sites, several hundred sites. The return information is back via the phone lines, just audio only. So you have video going out in one direction, audio coming back on the phone lines. This is good for distance learning applications and getting to remote sites that don't have the availability of fiber yet. The third way to do video conferencing requires sophisticated equipment. It's multi-way, what we call multi-way. That's where you have complete interactive two-way video between 3 or more sites. And that is done where all the sites will hear each other, but the speaking site, that's the video that will be voice-activated switch video. So whoever speaks, that's the image that is that everyone sees. Another way to do that is where we do a quad split screen, where we take the video screen, divide it into 4 equal sections, sort of like Hollywood squares, and you can see up to 4 sides. That way, that's called continuous presence, is another word for that. And that's the way we do video conferencing at the Williams Company. Systems range from very high-end design rooms that cost $250,000 to down to desktop video. You can put video over your computer for as low as $2,000 per seat. They really have completely different applications, and I'll get into that in a minute. But video conferencing has become one of the telecommunications hottest technologies. It really is in the midst of an explosion right now. Anyone who does a lot of traveling can understand why. I think a recent cover of the Forbes magazine, it had a big picture that the agony of air travel. The justification for video conferencing is not just savings from airfare and lodging and your travel expenses, but it's also it's an enhanced quality of life that you don't spend 3 days traveling just for a 2-hour meeting across country. That it allows me to attend my daughter's birthday the other day. I didn't have to travel because I was able to do a video conference instead of traveling across country. So it's the value of your time and wear and tear on the body when you travel through the airports these days. Some of the benefits of video conferencing are increased productivity, minimize time and productivity loss due to travel, streamline project development time, you can enhance the decision-making process, more timely decisions, share info more efficiently and effectively, respond quickly to customers, react faster to market changes, more informed decisions, exchange pertinent information during the decision-making process, easily convey documentation for review, more involved decisions including all appropriate people without incurring additional travel expenses. I know that a lot of times we have like junior engineers that normally would not be able to be involved in a meeting or able to have their input into some of these meetings that we're doing these days because of video conferencing. It really has helped, you know, with the decision-making process quickly. Enhance company operations, improve intra and inter-company communications, boost employee satisfaction through greater involvement and participation, and promote a unified company image. And of course, obviously reducing costs such as travel, lodging, etc. Video, like I said, video conferencing is more than a technology. It is a strategic business tool. Video conferencing benefits allow companies to be more effective in today's competitive global marketplace. Although video conferencing does not completely eliminate the need for occasional travel or face-to-face meetings, it does present a viable alternative for many situations which would be handled via face-to-face meetings. Likewise, video conferencing provides a substitute for often less effective, less personal means of communication such as fax, overnight mail, etc. Finally, the ease and affordability of video conferencing often promotes valuable communications which might not occur otherwise, such as interim meetings, executive briefings, etc. Video conferencing may be used across virtually all industries. Its impact may extend as far as your organization's creativity allows. And some of the applications are such things as sales presentations. At the Williams companies, we have a presentation suite that we use where we used to have to fly customers into Tulsa to demonstrate our technology that we had at Wiltel and at the Williams companies. Via our fiber optic network now, we can bring customers into, say, our site in Atlanta. We can do a customer presentation over video. This presentation suite has laser discs, it has multimedia. It can demonstrate the software that Wiltel uses to control its network. We have presenters there that can, experts can come in and ask and answer questions to potential customers. There's just a variety of other applications: executive communications, product reviews, project management, training and education, distance learning, telemedicine. You can meet now with other companies through ISDN. A lot of companies have dial-up video that you can literally dial from our office in Tulsa to some other office in some other city instead of having to meet with them. I personally feel that the first time you meet with someone that it really needs to be a face-to-face meeting. But video conferencing fits more in the middle of a relationship that you have with someone, where maybe the first time you go meet with a customer, you fly out and meet them face-to-face. After that, you could use video. And once you got to know someone very well, I guess you could go back to audio conferencing at that point. But video conferencing has changed the way the Williams Company does business. And I think with the oncoming of desktop video, which is a whole other application, people will be using desktop video to telecommute from their house. There was a science fiction movie out here recently where they had a scene where the boardroom was a long boardroom. Instead of having people sitting at the chairs, they had all these TV monitors, and there were heads of people that were attending the meeting. And literally, that technology is here today. So video conferencing is really going to change the way the world does business. Any questions? Yes.
Quality, picture, and speed at which you see people?
Yes. There are different technologies for connecting the video rooms together, and they primarily range from low bandwidth, 128 kilobits per second, up to full 45 megabits per second. The Vivix network, 45 megabits per second, is full broadcast quality. It's the same network that we use to carry the Super Bowl and CNN on, and it's full interactive CD quality audio. It's just like television. When you get down to the low end, 128 kilobits per second, you get real, what I call Russian TV. It's real jerky video. It gets down to like 2 or 3 frames per second. And the biggest complaint I have about the low end on the quality is not so much the video being jerky, but the audio. The audio, there's a delay of about up to 2 seconds. So when I speak to you, you hear me 2 seconds later, you answer back, you know, it's 4 seconds before I get a response. So I've asked my question, I don't get a response from you, so I start talking and they end up, it's not very interactive. I mean, you can't yell at each other. But, and there's everything in between. And, but most people are video conferencing at the lower bandwidths, 112 kilobits to 384 kilobits, mainly because it's economy. 384 kilobits per second is roughly $100 to $150 per hour for video conference, where our 45 megabit service is $600 an hour. So there's a difference in price, but it just depends on your application. And I mean, if it's a couple of accounts that know each other very well, then the lower bandwidth is fine. But if you're doing a sales presentation, you definitely want to do it at the higher bandwidths. Any other questions? Okay. I guess Tom?
Are we having fun yet? Good. Thanks, I'll take that, yeah. This technology stuff is pretty wonderful. We were talking about how we're going to use it. I want to talk to you a little bit about what some other states are doing. The information highway is a pretty interesting phenomenon. We've heard this term used pretty frequently, but not everybody knows what it means, I think. And I want to kind of give you an idea of what that's all about. Are we on? Hey. So I guess it was late last year, I was working on a project in our that involved our New York City television switching center. And I had part of the thing involved some folks from Wiltel, because we're located in the same space, basically, that Wiltel is located at in New York City, south end of Manhattan Island. And so I went over there and I was talking to one of their engineers, and I just walked up and casually said, well, gee, I guess you guys are up here building the super information highway, aren't you? And he said, no, he said, actually, I'm designing the super information cul-de-sac today. So, maybe there is a cul-de-sac too. And then I went up to New York City and ran into a fellow who was actually implementing some of this stuff. He was in charge of a crew. They were expanding the switches and they were doing whatever they do up there. And I happened to be a fellow I knew quite well. He worked for me some years ago, and when we were both at a different company. And I told him, I said, gee, John, I said, did you know that you guys are building the super information cul-de-sac of the future up here, you know? And we got to talking about the information highway. He said, well, he said, you can think of me as the speed bump on the information highway, because he said, nothing happens until I get it built. So now, anyway, the information highway, what the heck is that? What in the heck is that all about? Well, the information highway is pretty wonderful, I think. We're just beginning to touch the tip of it, and it's very exciting. I can't tell you what this is going to mean. Most of us have been around the world long enough to see some rather dramatic changes in the way things are done, the way business is done. You know, there really are about three reasons that business does business. One is for profit, one is for competitive necessity, and the third reason would be for regulatory reasons. Competitive necessity is what's driving this, I think. The information highway is a state-of-the-art broadband telecommunications network with integrated services: voice, video, audio, multimedia, another buzzword. It is a highway that is built on an optical fiber base. As I said, it is all digital. It is two-way. It is high speed. And it can serve needs of business. It can serve the needs of the educational community, of the medical community. Economic development is one of the more important things driving this, I think, as you will see shortly. Has a lot of applications for the criminal justice system, as a matter of fact, and we'll talk about some of those, and also public safety and government. The main thing that the information highway does is eliminate the barriers of time and distance. And when you see how this all comes together, I think you'll have an understanding of that. The information highway really provides easy and fast access to vital information resources for educational purposes. Companies need statistical information in their business. marketing information or information about what's going on in the regulatory world. When you work in a field like ours, telecommunications, and regulation changes almost by the day, you need to stay on top of these things. When I got ready to, started getting ready to talk to you folks today, I was trying to figure out what I was going to talk about, and I thought, you know, the super information highway is being built in 2 places in the world today that I know about, and I knew about one of them, really didn't even know about the other one, and that was in the state of Iowa. They're building, or have built, a optical fiber network connecting every county in the state of Iowa, and it's called the Iowa Communications Network. So I happen to be very fortunate in working for the Williams Company. It's a very aggressive and progressive company, and they provide us as employees with all the tools we need to do everything we need to do. And it's really great. I've got a Pentium 90 computer, and now, as of Monday, I've got internet access. And so I can jump on the internet and I whip up that little Netscape program. Did you guys hear about Netscape, the company whose stock went nuts just recently? I mean, the guy paid, the stock was valued 15 months ago at 1/20th of 1 cent. 1/20th of a cent. 15 months later, it's $58.25, you know, after the opening day. And the guy who invested $360 in it, one of the founders, his stock's worth $670 million. I mean, this is just incredible stuff. Well, anyway, so I jump on the internet and I put that Netscape software application running, and I type in on the search engine in the little dialog box, I type in Iowa Communications Network. About 3 minutes later, off the laser printer, all this stuff rolls off. I mean, you need information. Information is power. And if you think about a pool of 30 million people, and soon to be, what did you say, Russ, 200 million people by the end of the century? A pool of knowledge from all of those people giving input is just incredible. It's mind-boggling to think about. Well, in the area of education, we're talking about master teachers, and I know a lot of you folks are educators. My wife is a teacher. I happen to think of her as a master teacher because I think she's really great. But master teachers, and particularly for rural schools, one of the issues here with education is equity in education. There are lawsuits going in 21 states now over educational equity. How do you provide the quality of education in a rural school that you get in a city? Well, the superhighway can deliver a master teacher to a rural school, and that's particularly important in areas of physics and foreign languages, which those skills are really difficult to get in rural schools. For remedial purposes, teachers can meet with students in several schools at once. And the schools can share scarce resources, and of course, classes can be offered on some rather esoteric subjects that just a few students in the state might be interested in, and scattered in a wide geographic area. Telemedicine is a big application, remote diagnostics, and here we're not talking about